Japan has so much to see and so much to buy, but of course, there is one thing you're going to need, that being money. Today in Timothy in Japan, we look at your best options of how to get money and store your money in Japan. Cash, dosh, readies, wonga, whatever you call it, you definitely need it. But actually getting cash in Japan can be a lot harder than expected. Luckily, it actually has gotten easier over the last few years, but now let's look at the many ways how you can get cash in Japan. Way number 1. Just bring all the cash you're going to need in the vacation with you. This involves exchanging your local currency for yen before you get to Japan. I mean, you could even go full Scrooge McDuck on it and sort of keep your money in a little bag with a dollar sign on it and sort of go, ooh, look at my money. Also, technically, this is the best way to get the most of your money, as you're technically not being charged any extra fees when you transfer your money into yen. But unfortunately, there is one really big downside, and actually the reason why I actually never do it this way. If you lose your money, that's it, you're not getting it back. And the idea of carrying that money around would actually make me extremely nervous, so that's why I never do it this way. Plus, it's good to always have a plan B. Way number 2. Debit, credit, or cash travel card. This is essentially how I store my cash in Japan. I personally use the cash travel card from the post office. It's the only cash travel card in the United Kingdom that I know you can actually use yen on. I've actually put a link in the description on how to get this card. Also, the other good thing is it lets you load on what currency you want. And it also literally it takes the exchange rate from the moment you actually load it up. So let's say I loaded it up and all of a sudden the yen went down in price, then yeah, I'd still actually get the price that it was a couple of weeks back. So yeah, that's actually really cool, knowing in advance actually how much yen will actually be on your card. I can also recommend the Monzo card. The good thing with that is it has an app and it actually seems to work with a lot of Japanese websites. Because I used it with Disneyland and I used it with Team Labs Planets without any problems. Fortunately, it didn't work on Universal Studios one, so it doesn't work on all of them. Plus, it actually gives you a really good exchange rates, as I do believe it does charge you on the post office one anytime you want to take yen out. Monzo one, it doesn't actually, I think if you take out a certain amount, it doesn't actually charge you. I also took out my regular debit card with me, so it meant I had 3 cards. I'd always keep them all 3 separate different places, and that meant I had 3 different cards that I could take money out from, so if one unfortunately did go missing, I always had a backup. Essentially, the backup had a backup. Okay, now this is kind of the weird thing when it does come to cash cards and Japan. They will say, yes, we accept MasterCard and Visa, but from my understanding, unless your card is actually issued in Japan, they actually aren't physically going to actually work in the shops. So yeah, don't like buy a big meal somewhere and then be like, hey, I've got a card on me, and only have a card on you and then come to pay the bill with the card, because there's a high chance that yeah, you're going to be doing the dishes. So you're going to say, yeah, okay Tim, I'm going to go to a cash machine and just get cash out on my card. Well, that's the next problem. If you essentially go to a cash machine at a Japanese bank, I'm telling you now, there's 99% chance that your card will not be accepted. Yeah, it's really weird. As I said before, it only ever seems to accept cards that are actually issued physically by that bank. So it's not like back here in the UK, where let's say your bank is issued by Halifax, you can still go into a Barclays and use their machines. The actual bank's cash machine won't work on your card. So you're saying, why Tim, you even said this is the way you do it. Well, there is actually a way, and I'm going to physically show you now. Say hello to the 7-Eleven cash machine, a traveler's best friend. You can find these in every 7-Eleven in Japan, and trust me, there are lots of 7-Elevens in Japan. You can find them in train stations like this ones, airports, shopping centres, and even arcades. As long as it has the 7-Eleven on the top, that means you can use international cards. Now let's see how it works. First, you pick the language. Now make sure to pick the right type of card. And also remember, if you're using a debit card or a cash card, it's actually check-ins. I stupidly first thought it was actually under savings, but yeah, it literally wouldn't work, and it gave me a mini panic attack. Yeah, I thought the card wasn't going to work in Japan. Put in your PIN and then say how much money you want. The machine will just take a couple of moments to check everything's right. First, it will give you back your card and a receipt. Yeah, make sure you pick up the receipt or it will not give you your yen. And then, voila, your very own yen.
Thank you. We'd like to serve you again.
But in this trip, I've actually found out another convenience actually now has its own international cash machine. Family Mart stores cash machines now also accept international cards. Also, they seem to actually streamline the machines a lot more, so they act a lot more like machines back here. So you put in a credit card, it automatically can tell it's a credit card. You put in a debit card, so you don't go through that whole weird check-in option here. So technically, I'd actually say these Family Mart ones are actually a lot easier to use. So for whatever reason the 7-Eleven ones aren't accepting your card, I do just recommend trying one of the Family Mart ones, as they do seem to be a bit more user-friendly. And trust me, there's also pretty much a Family Mart on every corner of every major city in Japan as well. Also, Japanese post offices also have cash machines that also accept international cards. I personally never used one, but from what I've read on the internet and seen on the internet, these also work pretty well. So yeah, you really now have 3 options, considering when I first started going, you only had 2 options, and I think at one point they stopped actually accepting MasterCards for a short while. Things have really got better for using cards in Japan. So yeah, maybe, who knows, other convenience stores will also jump on this bandwagon. And now for the final option, the prepaid IC cards. Known as different names in different areas, such as Mo and the CETA card. Pretty much every local area seems to have a different name for this pass. There's a big list going up right now. So yes, of course, the main reason for these are to actually use for train travel, so you scan in and scan out without having to buy individual tickets. But the good thing about these, that they are also usable on stuff like vending machines, UFO catchers, other arcade machines, and probably the best thing of all, they're pretty much almost like a debit card. You can pretty much go into most shops in Japan and they will say on the side whether they accept it. So literally, let's say you bought something for about the equivalent of 1,000 yen and you had 1,000 yen on your card. Yeah, you can just scan it and actually use your IC card to actually pay for it. So essentially, I guess it's kind of like a super cool futuristic sort of credit card. As I said, I really wish the Oyster card, the one we have back here, would actually do stuff like this. It's just a really cool feature. So you can simply top these up at train stations. So you just put your card in and then you select how much yen you want to put in. So I guess if you're going to be spending a lot of money, just put like 10,000 yen on. That's just an example. And then that means essentially you could use it as a card. And I guess the benefit is that you can actually use these cards in shops, unlike the international debit cards that literally will not work in most shops. Essentially, if you want to pay for a meal on this, you aren't going to be doing the dishes. Also, now if you want to be like really trendy, you can actually download the Plusmo app, and yeah, you can use this on both Android and Apple devices. So that includes Apple phones. Literally, this turns your mobile device into Plusmo card, and I believe you can also top up online, so you don't even need the machine. So it's really showing you there is more and more ways to actually store your money in Japan and really be easily using it, because I remember when I first went, this was actually quite a annoying thing to have to do, always go to the cash machine. So yeah, that's your options. I hope you have found this useful, and make sure to subscribe. Bye.